Doug, you tell me when.
We're live. We're ready to go.
Ready? Okay. Oh, okay. I was waiting for a cue. That's my cue, I guess. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this family forum. And I hope that all of you made it through last week. Obviously, if you're here, you did. It was a tough one, but once again, we are pretty Summit strong. We always come out on top, and let's continue in that vein. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Donna Miller, the president of the Summit Board of Education. And joining me from the board this evening are my colleagues, Michael Colon and Peggy Wong. As you know, to give a little wave, thank you. As you may know, sunshine laws make it challenging for all 7 members of the board to be in one place at one time without formal public notice, without many protocols being in place. And that's why our other board members are not with us tonight. But Chris Bonner, Josh Weinrich, Vanessa Primack, and Jan Cho send their regards to all of you. As you also know, the Board of Education is the governing body of the district. We're here to make sure that our schools are well run, but we don't run our schools. Our administrators do that. So in a moment, I'm going to pass this meeting to them. But first, a few points and clarifications. First, and very importantly, I'd like to thank our PTO presidents. Board members are, in large part, community representatives, and we're committed to listening to all of you, our families and our students. And PTO leaders have been extremely helpful in that regard over the past few weeks and months. That's my dog in the background. And we appreciate the support and the information that the president's provided. So cheers to you, and we appreciate it. Allow me to describe how tonight's forum is going to work. Now, our preference, especially if you know me and our board, of course, would be to get all of us into one room for a forum that is this essential. And we're sorry that we can't be with you in person tonight. And we look forward to the time when we can be, and I'm hoping that that will be in September. for now we have Zoom. And to optimize the Zoom platform and to take and answer as many questions as we can in the time that we have, our process will be basically to read the questions that we've received and answer them. And I know that is going to feel a little bit weird, a little bit different than how we normally do things, maybe a little bit stilted. And I promise you, it is not our intent to be weird or stilted. We are truly just trying to answer as many questions as have been asked as fully as we can. And we believe that this format is going to allow for that. Now we're recording this session for others to view at a later time, so you can remind friends who cannot be here that they can view this. And remember, we're always here to answer any questions you have. This forum does not change that. So with all of that being said, again, we're going to answer as many questions as possible, and I'm going to pass it over to our district leadership team so they can start to do that. Rob, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. And welcome everyone. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you all for your patience. You know, this has been, continues to be the most intense timeline that we've ever been placed under, and your patience has been really critical. In my calmest moments, you know, I look back and I'm so grateful for the people that we have on staff and the people in our community. And I'm just really proud of the work that we've been able to produce to date. But before we get into any details or questions, I don't want to miss my opportunity to publicly say thank you to everyone who has contributed to this. It has been an incredible, incredible ride, and we're looking forward to really continuing this journey. I have to highlight our cabinet, Jennifer McCann and Tanya Lopez and Doreen Babas, Lou Pepe, Kathy Sarno, and Maureen Callender. They have been tirelessly committed to preparing this level of detail for you. I mean, these folks have skipped vacations. They've eaten almost every meal on the fly. They're logging nightly hours of sleep you can count on only one hand. And I want you all to know that I'm really proud to work with all of you. I want to say thank you to the board too. Individually and collectively, you've been really supportive and communicative, and we're lucky to have you as our governing body, so thank you. One last opportunity that I have to take is to welcome our new superintendent, Mr. Scott Huff, to our meeting tonight. Mr. Huff has been working really hard in transition in a couple of places, and he's graciously made himself available for us this evening. So I'll allow Mr. Huff to say a quick hello.
Good evening, everyone. Very happy to be here. It's my pleasure to introduce myself as the new superintendent for Summit Public Schools. My official start date is next Monday, August 17th. I hope tonight's forum provides you with many answers to the questions you might have about our plan to reopen. As you're aware, Governor Murphy requires that all schools provide in-person instruction to start the school year, but within his guidance, it was very broad. So as a result, every district had to undergo the lengthy, arduous process of crunching this timeline that Mr. Gardella talked about and coming up with specific plans to reopen our schools. We recognize that the only perfect plan is to go back to normal, but unfortunately, we're not living in that environment as we sit here today. I know that this plan was developed with the collaborative efforts of many stakeholders, dozens of stakeholders, through committee meetings and discussions. And over the last several weeks, I've had numerous conversations with this administrative cabinet about the development of this plan, and I have to share with you, I echo Mr. Gardella's sentiment. From what I have seen, collective effort of everybody putting their heart and soul into this plan is nothing short of remarkable. So I commend everybody for that. Don't want to waste any more time with that. So we have a lot of information to share with you tonight. So now I'll turn it back over to Mr. Gardella.
Thank you. Okay, so a couple of quick points. One, just a reminder that the meeting is being recorded and will be available for anybody who can't make it. And also, I believe, Donna, you hit this, we are going to do our very best to give as many answers as we have. We understand that people desire to have full details to make a decision on which option they prefer. This plan to date and this forum, they really represent our best, you know, what we possibly could have done on this tight timeline, including hurricane delays, to put everybody in a position to make a call. So I'll kick off by just capturing a little bit of context that we started with the DOE's guidance. They require us to reopen our schools in some way. This is not an option to start fully remotely. That is something that Mr. Huff just touched on. We have received that question about the district's decision to reopen or the district's decision to close. We will just answer that up front. We will clarify, similar to the decision to close last March, the decision for schools to open expressed through the governor. So we began developing our guiding principles, our goals, including delivering on 3 important factors and the best balance that we possibly could have provided. We are balancing the education and socialization of our students, the overall health of all of our stakeholders, and mitigating the risks related to COVID-19 to the best of our ability. We recognize that COVID-19 presents a myriad of problems, and a myriad of problems for everyone. It's caused a great deal of stress and fear among all of us for a variety of reasons. But our plan recognizes that the illness itself is not the only problem that we face as a result of this pandemic. So as we continue to evaluate our role in all of this as educators, we come back to our belief that education is essential. School is essential, and not attending school regularly does pose risks to children and to families. We believe that educators are just as essential to the overall health and the well-being of the communities as physicians are, and hospital workers and first responders, and we support them. So currently, our governor believes that it's safe for us to reopen. The Department of Ed has delivered some ambiguous guidance. The State Department of Health has not taken a firm position, and this has frustrated us. So many of us are making these same decisions for our own children in our own towns. Throughout this process, I have remained in constant contact with our county superintendent and our local health officer, and I will reassure you, our county superintendent has not found our plan to be in any kind of violation of the Department of Ed guidance. And our health officer has repeatedly assured me that our approach is just as safe as any. Final point before I get into meeting expectations, I want to reiterate that the plan shared with you represents our plan to date, not a final product. Releasing this work that's come from this vision that has been communicated all throughout July and opening up this forum is part of this process. And it's important that we all recognize that there are still a lot of uncertainties that we operate under every single day. And some of those uncertainties could really drastically change what we're doing. And I'll give just a few of the examples. One is our purpose for tonight. We don't have firm enrollment. In our previous survey, it didn't give us firm enrollment because we recognized that families needed more information with which to make a final decision. It gave us enough data, however, to continue to allow us to plan. Parent registration will determine what our buildings and the procedures in these plans will actually look like. So we need you to register by tomorrow night at midnight in order to advance our plans. Our enrollment could result in alterations. If the Department of Health decided to take a firm position on the matter, that could cause alterations. So far, they've pointed to the CDC and the Department of Ed, when in fact this is a public health crisis, and their guidance would supersede both of those entities. The governor could change directives, which ultimately could result in alterations. So without delaying further or droning on, I'll get to the purpose of our forum tonight. Critical for parents to remain cognizant of the fact that our plans represent our best efforts to maximize opportunities for our community within our guidance. We are not attempting to sell one option over another tonight. We are not trying to make a choice for you. We believe that we've created a comprehensive and detailed in-person and / remote combination model, as well as a robust full remote model. They are both quality options, and we will provide a quality education regardless of your comfort level or of your preference. There's no right or no wrong choice here. Only the fact that we're working to try to help you make that choice. As for our format tonight, we are planning to meet until about 8:30, answering as many pre-submitted questions as we can during that time frame. We're going to leave our question form open so that people can continue to submit questions, and we'll get as many of those answers that we're not able to cover tonight out to you as we lead up to reopening. We did have approximately 700 questions, and there's no way we're going to be able to efficiently answer all of them tonight. But in order to be most productive, we're going to handle the questions as follows. So we combined as many similar topics as we could. We bucketed them. So if you don't hear your specific question asked, you may still get your answer. So just please listen for the topics that are posed in questions. We categorize the questions so that our content stays organized, easy to follow, easy to absorb. Many questions asked for a level of detail that we simply do not have firmed up yet. Examples include our building specific procedures, how athletics may evolve, Those things are in discussion, they are in planning, but they are not firm yet. So we're going to hold those for now. They're very important, and I thank you for raising them. We will get that to you. Our questions, many questions that we got regarded what if type scenarios. So in so many crisis related situations, we find that there are an infinite number of what ifs. So we can't possibly have answers to all of them, but we have laid out as many of those what if scenarios as possible for now in our handbook, and we will continue to collaborate on all of those types of questions. There were several valuable suggestions that people gave, and I thank you for all of those. All of those will be taken into consideration, but we prefer to use the time tonight to answer as many questions as we can. And we're not going to restate, all of the suggestions that were made. And lastly, a lot of questions asked point back to the requirement to reopen. One example is, how can we return to school when we can't even dine in a restaurant or see a movie or watch a sporting event? And we have Broadway that's closed until June 2021. Those questions are frustrating. And if you have frustrations regarding our governor's directives, I'd encourage you to direct those questions to his office. I mean, we are doing the best that we can under our directive to reopen. So I'm going to address a couple of questions up front because they are hot topics before we get into our more formal Q&A. And the first question that has come up a lot is social distancing, our ability to get to 6 feet of distance. So to date, the New Jersey Department of Health has unfortunately remained somewhat in the background. They've pointed to the Department of Ed, they've pointed to the CDC. They have not taken a firm position of their own on appropriate distancing. So I've approached our local health officer directly on 6 feet countless times. And she's continuously confirmed that the 6 foot distance is a recommendation, as feasible, as practicable, and it's not a requirement at this time. So we continue to await the Department of Health's position on this. And in the meantime, it's been very difficult for us as educators to ignore the countless benefits of consistent school. So the answer to that question truly is, we will distance to the very best of our ability. And I appreciate that it's not a clean answer, but the question is difficult to answer without that accurate enrollment. As an aside, and this is purely my opinion, that strict adherence to 6 feet may not be practicable in any type of in-person learning model. I believe that AB models will do the very best that they can do as well. So that's a good segue into another point that I'd like to address up front, which is our rationale for not going with an AB model and addressing the questions about the potential for density in our schools. We did evaluate AB models, and we have discussed them at length. There's no school model that prevents people from moving around in their communities and gathering outside of school at some point. That's beyond our control. But by having people in every day, we can at least minimize our school community's movement while they are with us. We can screen people daily. We can ensure that they're masked. We can cohort as best as we can. We can ensure they're supervised and that they're accountable. And as supported by our health officer, implementing daily controls and minimizing the unknowns to the best of our ability may even be better than inviting even more of those unknowns in every other day or every so many days. So to us, the safety gains from a rotation structure are much more theoretical than practical. And the other health considerations that we risk by being inconsistent, we simply just can't ignore. We were asked if we would reconsider an AB model. And I will say that it would be foolish for us to close any doors. So as I stated earlier, there are still a lot of uncertainties that could force us into this type of direction. So with that, I will turn it over to Laureen.
We are starting in the health and safety section because that is pretty much what's on everyone's mind. The first question is, what is the difference between a desk and student table? Will all desks at the primary and elementary schools have the acrylic dividers between them? Also, can class lists be shared early to allow parents to plan for potential school closures?
Laureen, thank you for that question. I can start by saying there's a big difference between a student desk, which is individualized, and work tables, where we could have students as many as 4 to 6, depending on the size of the table, especially our primary centers where we have kindergartens where they have activity tables where students are grouped. Wherever possible, we've already provided distancing for the desks of the individual students in the rooms. And I think you've done a good job of displaying that with the principals on the building walkthroughs with the videos. In areas where we could not separate students at an activity table or a learning table, that's where we focused on acrylic dividers, so we can provide the distance within the work area. So for instance, if I had a student sitting next to me at a work table, I would have an acrylic divider around me, which would also protect the student to my side. If there's a student across from us at the table, they would also have the protection of the acrylic divider. They're high enough to where if a student were to cough or sneeze, even though they're going to be wearing masks, they're still in that protected area. And at this point, that's what we've come up with to, try and make that environment better place for our students. Your question about the second part, I think, is going to be covered in the building plans, where the principals will be reaching out to the teachers, so the teachers can be reaching out to parents with class lists.
Okay, next question. What's the max amount of children you will put in a classroom? If I register for in-person and then I find out there are 25 kids, may I switch to remote?
Yeah, I'll take that question. Purely depends on the size of the classroom and the enrollment. So a lot of this will be determined once we know enrollment. We'll set our desks, we'll make decisions, and as stated earlier, enrollment could naturally impact our plan. The second question is, answer is yes, you can switch from in-person to remote per the registration procedures on the website. There is a 1-week transition period in order to be fully switched.
Okay, next question. What is the criteria in approving mask wearing exceptions?
The Department of Ed put out a Q&A that was released on Friday that addressed this. There are several bullet points. They have to do with inhibiting individuals' health, extreme heat, if a student's in water, if there's a medical condition reflected in an IEP, if a student is under the age of 2, eating or drinking, looking at a few more of them now, I'm sorry. If there's someone having trouble breathing or is unconscious, if we're engaged in high intensity aerobic or anaerobic activity, during gym or music class, when we're in when individuals are in a well-ventilated location, or when wearing a face covering creates unsafe conditions in which to operate equipment. So I would encourage everybody to look at that DOE Q&A that was released as well.
Okay. If PPE is limited, how are you confident teachers and staff are well protected?
We are doing the very best that we can to support staff with PPE. The requirement to reopen, it makes them essential. Therefore, they're going to be at risk just as medical professionals are. In addition to requiring masks, we are providing all staff with face shields. We also have other types of PPE, such as plexiglass, available depending on roles and needs and situations. And once we have enrollment, we'll work on distancing staff to the best of our ability.
What is your procedure to disinfect sinks, faucets, bathroom door handles, etc.?
Our cleaning procedures are actually available on the district website. If you go to the district website under the area facilities, Angelo Palumbo is on here as well. We spent a lot of time prior to this even happening determining what those cleaning procedures are. When COVID hit, it simply was a matter of looking at any adjustments that needed to be made. What we found is the material that we use, the supplies, Enviro Solutions ES64 and BioEsk disinfectant are already certified by the EPA as environmentally approved cleaning agents, and they're also green cleaning products. So we're happy to report that out to any of the parents or anyone out there that wants to know what kind of items we're actually using. They're microbial effective, and the actual procedures, the custodians have been trained. They receive training throughout the year, and they will continue to do that deep cleaning as we have additionally allotted time for that activity each day.
Okay. The plan states that schools will be cleaned, quote, on a regular basis. What does that mean? How often?
You know, again, that's a good question, and a number of people have asked that question. On a regular basis means daily. However, due to the COVID potential here, we are going to be doing additional cleaning throughout the day. Uh, Anywhere where we have, high touch areas such as doorknobs, handles throughout the building, you're going to see the custodians throughout the day trying to go through and also do an extra cleaning in that respect. I know we have a lot more questions about cleaning. Lorene, I might hit some of them up now, but an additional measure that we've taken is putting additional cleaning products in each classroom. So a spray bottle of the approved environmentally friendly cleaner is available for the teacher if they feel the need to touch up an area within the room if there's a lot of turnover throughout the day. So, we're kind of all hands on deck with this, but the primary responsibility for cleaning remains with the custodial maintenance team. And we are also hiring additional part-time custodians at our elementary schools to aid in that effort.
Why is the use of playgrounds being prohibited when state playgrounds are open?
I saw that question. I wasn't sure why that was posed. The playgrounds are in fact open. They have been opened. We work very closely with the city on our shared use of facility, or not use of facilities, but our fields. As soon as the playgrounds were opened with the city, we followed suit. So our playgrounds are up. They've been open for the past month at least.
Okay. Do kindergarten classrooms have desks or tables with plexiglass dividers? Do elementary school desks have plexiglass around them?
I think I already touched on the kindergarten tables. However, the elementary desks, we are able to space them. They will not have acrylic dividers. So they're approximately 4.5 feet apart. I would say it's safe to say 3 feet apart. But no, they will not have the acrylic dividers. Areas where we had a problem trying to separate or could not separate, that's where we're going to be focusing our efforts on the acrylic dividers.
I believe you answered the first part of this question, but there's a second part. Are the desks, chairs, surfaces wiped down in between classes? Do students need to bring or provide their own sanitizing wipes to do this, or will they be readily available in the classroom?
Now, students do not need to bring sanitizing wipes, but we appreciate that. As far as how they're going to be cleaned, what we're trying to do is restrict movement within the classrooms if possible, especially like at the elementary level and the middle school and high school. I know they've done some changes with scheduling, but I think Jen or somebody's going to probably answer that more as you go on. As far as cleaning throughout the day, again, whenever possible, we have custodians available throughout the day, but I think to expect that our custodian is going to be in every single room, cleaning every single desk every time a child gets up from the desk is not going to happen. But the rooms will be sanitized daily, and we will take it from there.
Okay, I believe you or Rob addressed this earlier. Some other districts are providing face shields for students and staff. Will Summit be providing them for our people as well?
As far as we do have a supply of face shields that we ordered, and we will be supplying them to all staff on a requested or as needed basis. As far as students, I do not believe we are requiring students to have face shields.
Our concern is that children will most likely not be keeping a social distance and wearing masks properly. How will you be reinforcing safety measures?
Well, the best way we can do that is to set rules and routines and expectations, and via our teachers and our school-wide announcements. And we're going to communicate them regularly, consistency to students, to parents. Staff are going to consistently remind students and efforts to really try to train them to what will be our new norm. So our middle and high school administrators are currently also discussing the ways in which, refusal of wearing a mask can be enforced as a potential code of conduct violation.
Okay. I would appreciate more details on windows will be open when possible. Which temperatures are considered reasonable for open windows? Are there classrooms without windows? Do rooms have AC or other forms of air exchange?
Okay, again, that's a question that's really building specific. What I can start is by saying that we do have an indoor air quality plan in place. It's been in place since 2007. It makes sure that our buildings are compliant with POSHA, which is the Public Employee Occupational Safety and Health Act. We recognize that good indoor air quality is essential to not only the employees' health and productivity, but also that of our students. Mechanical ventilation is utilized throughout our buildings, whether it be fans, portable blowers, or existing HVAC equipment. Our elementary schools, we did a survey a couple of years back and found we're at about 90% equipped with air conditioning. And most of that is in learning spaces or classrooms. We have ordered additional oscillating fans for classrooms at the high school and the middle school. And we are also going to be dispersing some over to Franklin for the 5th grade wing, because we know that's a challenge, and especially with wearing masks on warm days. Any of the building or any of the rooms that have air conditioning equipment that is capable of regulating temperatures, the regulations from the state that were passed down to us said they want to try and keep those rooms between 68 degrees on the low end and I think 79 degrees on the high end. If we have anything that falls outside of that, our custodial maintenance team who monitors room temperatures, they get on that. And of course, if there's a work order in place, we take care of that. But as far as the windows, almost every room has windows or the ability to open the window, and common sense. If it's a nice day out and you have the ability to open that window, most certainly do that. We encourage that. And at the same time, if we have any rooms that are within the building that do not have windows, we have talked about opening doors into the hallways for additional air to come in. But those rooms are fed by outside air. Otherwise, we wouldn't get approval to utilize those rooms. So we do, in a lot of cases, have rooftop units, or we have unit ventilators, and their purpose is to pull in outside air and to cycle out interior air.
Will there be touchless paper towel, sanitizer, and soap dispensers?
Again, hats off to the maintenance team. They've made a concerted effort over the past few years to increase the touchless faucets throughout the district. Are we complete with that? No. At this point, I had a conversation with Angelo today, and he assured me that every bathroom has at least one point that is touchless. We will continue that operation. And of course, at this point, now we're in competition with all other districts, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the United States and probably around the world to, get those kind of equipment upgrades. So we will continue our efforts towards that goal.
What, apart from opening windows, is being done to promote air circulation and filtration at the middle school?
I just talked about the additional fans that we just placed an order for. They're actually coming in, I think, within 3 to 5 days. And at this point, I can report to the public out there, anyone who has a student in the middle school, they will have a fan in every room. And that's a considerable upgrade from where we were in the past. Outside of that, we continue to do preventive maintenance and ensure that our HVAC systems are operational. And that also includes exhaust throughout the district. We're actually in a very fortunate position since we replaced all of our boilers in the past 10 years, because during the boiler projects where we were getting 40 cents on the dollar from the state, we also upgraded all of our exhaust fans. So they're all serviced, they're all working, and we're in pretty good shape.
Okay. How will the guidelines, i.e. self-quarantine after travel to certain states, mask wearing, not sending sick students to school, etc., be enforced? Unfortunately, our state and community have seen many examples of similar rules not being followed without any consequences.
Hi, everybody. So through our health offices, our nurses will be providing constant communication, education, updates to whatever information is available to our entire school community regarding all of those issues, the importance of self-monitoring, the importance of temperature checks in the morning before coming to school, being aware of travel restrictions through the CDC, making sure that people are quarantining for the 14 days if they are traveling. So through the efforts of our school nurses, our teachers and administrators, this will be communicated on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Will we be alerted if there is a child or staff member in our child's classroom with an exception to the mask wearing mandate? And will that person be required to wear a face shield instead? Will the school provide that face shield?
So right now, we are still awaiting guidance regarding this. As Mr. Gardella spoke earlier, any accommodations to wearing a face mask will need to be presented to the school principal or school nurse, and we will make those accommodations. We can certainly provide a face shield, but other accommodations will need to be put in place if a student is unable to wear a mask.
The New Jersey Department of Education checklist for reopening requires a process for screening. Please explain the process for entry into school buildings, what a visual check of symptoms means exactly, and how that could possibly be done with most students entering simultaneously, how a visual check would catch either a student or staff member with a fever, and how a visual check alone meets the DOE requirement for screening.
So the DOE does require visual symptom checks. They do not require that the districts complete temperature checks. Logistically, it just doesn't, it's not possible. We have talked about that at length with all of our district school nurses, and we, like many other districts, are going to rely on our parents and our staff to be diligent and to self-monitor and take these temperature checks at home and not send children to school when they're sick. Our nurses will be providing training to all of our teachers about what visual symptom checks look like. Honestly, our teachers do that regularly, though. They can identify when a child is off or not feeling well in the classroom. But as children are entering the buildings, we will have staff monitoring them and observing carefully. And any child who is showing any signs of COVID will be sent directly to the health office or sent home outside of school.
Under these new guidelines, how will you perform safe active shooter drills and fire drills?
Hi, everyone. The Office of School Preparedness and Emergency Planning over at the state will be giving webinars on a month-to-month basis on the ideal types of drills to perform, keeping social distancing in mind, and if they allow for any kind of modification to those drills. So information is forthcoming, so stay tuned.
Can you please provide guidance on what the thresholds are in terms of students testing positive for COVID that would require a shutdown at the classroom level, school level, and system level? I am supportive of the in-classroom instruction for my kids, so this will help me understand the conditions that will precipitate an all virtual format. Thank you for the administration for your hard work. You are dealing with an unbelievable challenge.
Thank you for that. The answer is we don't have those thresholds yet. We are waiting for the Department of Health to give us that information. And when we have that, we'll share it. But there have been a lot of questions about that.
If my child has a typical childhood fever for 24 to 48 hours, do they need a doctor's note to return to school?
So right now, yes, we will need a doctor's note specifying that a child has a non-COVID illness like an ear infection or strep throat. Otherwise, we are requiring, based on the guidelines that we've received, that people with symptoms, staff or students, stay home for 10 days at least until they are without any symptoms, and that they are 24 hours fever-free without any fever-reducing medications.
Parents of children in the district must travel outside of New Jersey beyond the recommended date, i.e. the parents will not be back in Summit by August 18th, but the students who will attend in-person sessions at school do not travel or leave New Jersey. The parents are nonetheless expected to quarantine upon the return. The question is, the students who did not travel outside of New Jersey live in the same household and are unable to social distance in the home during the parents' self-quarantine. Will the students be allowed to attend in-person class starting on September 1st if they are in the household with individuals who are self-quarantining? Many thanks in advance.
Yes, the student can return to school. The student does not have to quarantine unless the parent or someone else in the household becomes symptomatic. Then at that point, they would not be allowed to come to school. But just because somebody is self-quarantining in a home because of travel does not mean that students need to stay home as well.
What was the thinking of allowing students who are household contacts of people who are suspected COVID-19 cases to still attend school and not self-quarantine? In other words, why is the quarantine being implemented only for students in households of lab-confirmed cases of COVID-19, especially given that it can take more than 7 days to get test results?
Again, we're following the guidance from the CDC and Department of Health on that, and that's what the recommendation is right now.
In the event that we can visit colleges in other states, how will that affect attendance and isolation/quarantine?
So the CDC guidelines with travel restrictions will apply to college visits. So if you're traveling to a state that's on that list, you will be required to quarantine for 14 days. I think I know that many colleges are offering virtual tours now, and that might be a good option given the current environment.
Since COVID cases resulting from school reopening are more likely to occur among parents than the students, how is the district liaising with New Jersey's contact tracing program?
So shout out to Ann Zanelli, our district nurse coordinator, and all of our school nurses who have been working incredibly hard over the last few months working on this. Ann Zanelli and B. Mendez, Jefferson JPC school nurse, they attended the 6-hour Johns Hopkins contact tracing course, but they're also going to be in very close contact with the Department of Health and our county health officer. They will not be conducting any contact tracing on their own. They will, of course, initiate any contact tracing within our school buildings, though, and be able to work closely with our other district nurses. So it'll just be constant communication with our county health office.
Can face shields be used in replacement of cloth face masks?
They cannot. Face shields can be worn with a face mask, but a cloth covering, face covering is necessary.
Clarification on contact tracing. If my child fully masked attends a class and sits next to and less than 6 feet away from a student fully masked who is later tested positive for COVID, would I be notified of the exposure and would my child then need to quarantine for 10 days?
So I think this might have been updated even since our parent publication of our reopening plan. So the guidance is that a close contact is anybody that is within 6 feet for over 10 minutes with or without a face mask. So anybody with a face mask could be considered a close contact if they meet that other criteria and will be contacted if somebody is suspected, confirmed having COVID.
My daughter has asthma, and even an hour with a mask on makes it hard to breathe for her. So my question is, are kids going to have the option of doing online or every other week? And if they are socially distanced in the classroom, will they be able to take their mask off?
So I talked about this before with regards to requesting an accommodation to wearing a mask. And if there's a medical reason, that certainly is something to consider. And any learning accommodations that are requested should also go through the building principal. We are requiring face masks even when social distancing in school right now, unless there's an accommodation requested.
Regarding contact tracing for students who are household members of lab confirmed cases of COVID-19, will the school receive that information from the health department or will they be relying on families to self-report?
It'll be both ways. We'll certainly be relying on our health department to give us that information, but through a new illness, I don't know if it's new, but it's certainly going to be something that's going to be required more now, is an illness reporting form that parents will be completing when their students are not coming to school. So we'll have a better idea of why students are home, and we'll be able to follow up with families about that.
Okay, this next one has 2 parts. Will all student and staff be required to do COVID tests before going to school? After 14-day quarantine, will the contact be tested and showing negative results before going back to school?
So the Department of Health and CDC are not recommending that school districts have people tested before they come to school in September. And we do not need a negative test before coming back to school. We just need you to follow the 10 days of symptom-free, 24 hours, no fever, without any medication, and all symptoms have improved.
How many classroom teachers were consulted in developing the safety guidelines? How many high-risk individuals were included in developing the safety guidelines?
There were 160 staff members that were involved in our reopening planning committees, and many of them were on the Health and Safety Committee. Thank you. And with regards to who had some high risk concerns, I'm not privy to all of that information, so I don't know.
Okay, you may have answered this before, but I'm going to ask it again just in case. I would like to know if someone in my child's class tests positive for COVID, regardless of whether my child is considered a contact per the CDC rules. Will I be told if they are in a class with someone who tested positive?
So this is also something that we'll be consulting with the Department of Health about. We want to, of course, be considerate of our families and the need for us to keep everybody healthy and safe. But we also, and a lot of the students might be affected just because of being a close contact. So we understand the need for information, and we'll certainly be considering that every time something happens.
Okay, we're winding down on the health and safety section because we want to make sure we answer other questions too. Mandatory quarantine. If a contact needs to quarantine for 14 days, will their siblings who are also registered in Summit Public Schools also be required to quarantine during that time?
To talk about that, no, we do not need everybody to quarantine. It's just the person that is that has been exposed to a close contact that needs to quarantine.
Okay, and final one. Will the attendance policy be amended, meaning if parents are truly keeping students home proactively, if they have any of those symptoms, then students might miss more than the allotted amount of days? Amending the policy might encourage parents to keep students home when showing these signs.
So we're not going to be amending the attendance policy, and of course, encourage staff and students to stay home when you're not feeling well. If you have a child that's not feeling well, and they feel well enough to participate in remote learning, that is certainly an option now. So if a student is participating in remote learning, they are not going to be recorded as absent. So I think that's a good option right now.
Okay, now we're just gonna go in an alphabetical order of the section that was selected in the form. This is regarding aftercare. Is there a plan to support in-building aftercare programs at any point this school year?
Okay, had to unmute myself. Actually, it's good question, good point. We did reach out to the Connection, and we have a long-standing partnership with the Connection to provide after-school aftercare opportunities for working parents in Summit. And we're going to continue that in each of our elementary schools and the primary centers. And this includes space in the cafeterias, as well as gyms and playground for recreation. The spaces that they will be utilizing, primarily the cafeteria and gyms, are not spaces that we are going to be utilizing throughout the school day. However, those areas will also be cleaned daily and disinfected at the end of their use. So they will be clean and ready and available when they come in, and they will be cleaned and disinfected upon their departure. The Department of Children and Families, DCF, licenses the Connection for those specific rooms, and that's why they utilize those areas. I think that pretty much covers that question, correct? Do you have anything else on that, Laureen?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, next question is about athletics. Assuming sports are cleared to proceed, if a family has chosen a 100% remote learning option, can the child or children participate in school-sponsored sports?
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly appreciate there are going to be, a lot of questions about athletics. I have a call this week with Dan Healy, our athletic director. We're going to make sure that our student athletes, families are well informed about the direction that we're going. To answer the question, yes, all student athletes that are registered to receive instruction will be permitted to participate in sports, regardless of whether they're attending school in person or remotely.
If I choose remote learning, can I switch to in-person learning at any point?
There are monthly registration periods. They're outlined in our reopening plan in the registration plan selection section. We need to follow those procedures just to ensure consistency and smooth transitions.
Okay, this has to do with classrooms. These are two parts to this one. In case of in-person option, how does the kids change classes in 6th grade for various courses? And the second part is, in case of remote options, how does the kids break out for various courses, referring to advanced math?
Good evening, everyone. It's actually a pretty standard response to this. All of the students, whether they are in middle school or high school, will receive a regular schedule as they would if we were going back in normal circumstances. So with that, at the middle school this year, they will be cohorted to minimize traveling throughout the building. And the criteria for the cohorting is based off of their math class and their foreign language choice. Further information of what cohort they have been placed in will be coming from Dr. Gallo and her administrative team. So if by any chance we wind up going fully remote due to a statewide closure, or you choose the remote option, your child's schedule would reflect the 4 periods that they would be taking on the in-person, for periods 1 through 4 on the A day and periods 5 through 8 on the B day.
Okay, this next question has to do with decision making. The teachers union has expressed concerns about having teachers return to a classroom setting. Who ultimately makes the final decision regarding how teaching will be conducted?
To answer the question, ultimately the superintendent, makes those decisions in accordance with all applicable laws. I want to address a couple of concerns that were brought forward by the SEA, our Teachers Association, by placing it in a timeline. We released our details of our plan to our staff on Monday, August 3. And at that point, just fully acknowledging that that is our plan to date and that we may need to continue to make adjustments. In that communication, we included an invitation to the staff to participate in a similar forum to this, which was scheduled for August 5, in which staff were encouraged to attend and to communicate their comments and questions and any concerns they had. That forum did take place as planned. On August 4th, we were provided a letter from the SEA that contained numerous inaccuracies, and there were incorrect assumptions about the return to the school plan and to the requirements. But we hope that the released plan and that the staff forum clarified many of the concerns that they had voiced in their letter and provided more details as to how we intend to operate our schools. One other point that's important to staffing that I'd like to touch on is I was asked today, about what happens if we can't staff a particular section, class section, or school due to staff members being sick or on quarantine in mass or inadequate subcoverage. The first answer is, we've launched a substitute recruiting campaign to the best of our ability. Social media, we have some ads out there. We also have some new lawn signs that we're getting out there ASAP to increase our substitute pool. The real answer is that it's possible that we find ourselves in a position to have to close, an in-person class section or possibly more than that, and shift that section to a full remote model, rather abruptly. So this speaks to also to the need for professional development for our staff. We have to make sure that they're prepared, for that shift. We have to be prepared for a full remote shift, at any moment. And we're looking at various ways to try to prepare our staff to maximize productivity in those kinds of situations.
Okay, this next question is directed for special education. If a child is kept home for remote only learning, how will they be evaluated for speech therapy? If they are going to be attending classes in person, will speech also be part of their morning in school instruction, or will that be done remotely during the afternoon session?
So most of the child study team evaluations that need to be conducted, including speech, need to be done in person. So we would have to make arrangements for that remote learner to come into our building and or come meet outside, which we've started doing this week and last week actually, to get assessed. For now, that's the best answer that we have for that. As far as speech therapy in person, we will be providing services in the morning and through teletherapy in the afternoon also. So our therapists are just doing the best that they can do to schedule those sessions. They won't really be able to start doing that until they get schedules from building principals.
This next question is for driver's ed. Will there be driver's ed for sophomores in the fall quarter? Many are turning 16 and need the classroom training to get their permits.
Yes, many of the health education classes will take place during the fall semester.
Okay. Can you please tell us, based on the 87% who plan on sending children to in-person school, what the estimated class sizes are? And just to note that 87% is referring to the first survey we put out of the amount of parents who said they wanted to send their children in person. That was the initial survey.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. 87% was based on approximately 2,600 responses, leaving about another 1,400 or so responses out of the percentage, and thus making the estimated class size really challenging to project accurately. That survey, remember, it was weeks ago, a month ago, and things are changing daily. So the percentage allowed us to continue to plan, and that was the point. But we didn't consider that data to be accurate as far as enrollment projections. So we'll be in a better position to answer enrollment class size questions once we have our registration all squared away.
With 87% of survey respondents requesting in-person learning and a historically dense classroom experience, please explain how distance in the classroom will be maintained. Indoors, even with masks, a 6-foot distance in all directions is recommended. Will this be adhered to, or will plexiglass surround every desk?
Again, I think, Laureen, we're going to find that a lot of the questions from a lot of people are focusing on the same things, whether it was in health and safety or in facilities. I think Rob opened by stating that whenever possible, wherever possible, we're going to look to adhere to the 6-foot. However, that is not always possible. When the guidance came down, it was written into the guidance whenever possible. So in the classrooms, I think the best thing that I would suggest for individuals to do is to go online and look at the video walkthroughs of the typical classrooms. And there you can see the distancing of the desks, which are 3 feet apart. And as far as navigation throughout the building, there's going to be a lot of signage, much akin to if you're in a Walmart or a ShopRite or any of the other stores that you've seen lately, where we have the directional arrows that will be on the floor. A lot of the hallways were converted to one-ways where possible. I know that's how the high school is pretty much laid out this year. We're trying to encourage distancing with little signage that's on the floor for representation, but that's pretty much what's happening. We talked a lot about the plexiglass barriers. You can see them in the offices. We talked about acrylic dividers for students. You'll find that the acrylic dividers are going to be where it's optimal, where it's needed. They will not be on individual desks. We wanted to make sure that people understood that when we got the information out, not that we set up an expectation that we can't live up to. And at this point, we don't feel is needed. If something, again, were to change as far as guidance from the state or a directive to a different way to do that or conduct that, then we would do it.
Okay, this next question, you touched upon the ventilation previously, Lou, but this person also asked, they heard.
Yeah, I think I'll cover one of the other areas because we've already touched on air conditioning. We've already touched on windows. We've already touched on getting air in and out of the classrooms. And really that's the key. That's why every classroom is equipped with a unit ventilator. It's an air exchanger to ensure that we're bringing in outside air, and we need to have 40 cubic feet of air per minute per child, and that we're taking inside air and pushing it back out so that we're exchanging the air in those rooms. One of the upgrades that I think is really important to know is we had a lot of concerns and questions about the type of filters we're using. In the beginning, somebody had put out to us, it's possible, could we use MERV 13 filters? Of course, we took a look at what we're doing, what we have the building, or I should say, the equipment capability for. When we look at the owner's manuals and the manufacturer suggestions, we were running MERV 4s, we were running MERV 8s, depending on the type of units. Most of our classroom unit events are about 10 years old. The manufacturer suggestion at that point in the manuals were MERV 7s as a maximum. What we did is we went to EI Associates, who is our architects and also engineering firm. And we had the head of the mechanical engineering there look into that for us and check back with Trane, one of our manufacturers. And we did get the green light to use MERV 13 filters. So we have ordered all MERV 13 filters. They will be in by the end of the month and installed in all the classrooms. So that's one of the major upgrades. One of the concerns I saw a question is, well, how come before you were saying it's not possible, we can't do that, and now you're doing it? Because once we started digging into it, we wanted to make sure that we got a professional recommendation that we could use it. The caveat is we're going to be changing filters more often. So typically we would change filters about 2 to 3 months, depending on the need. We now will be changing filters closer to every month, depending on the need, because throughout the building, there's different needs in different rooms. But that's pretty much the major upgrade. And the the MERV 13s are the recommended filters because they're going to capture a lot more particles. Sneeze.
Okay. COVID transmission risk is significantly lower outdoors. Were outdoor classrooms considered?
And I don't know that this question's for me.
Did we lose someone?
Yes, we lost Mr. Gardella.
How about Jen? You can answer about outdoor possibilities at all?
Sure. So we have asked, oh, Mr. Gardella, you're back. Would you like to answer or you want me to go?
Sorry, I had an internet disruption. I didn't hear the question.
Were outdoor classrooms considered?
Oh yeah, yes. Jen, I'm sure you could handle that one well. We have considered our outdoor spaces, and we're going to continue to consider utilizing those outdoor spaces to the best that we can. I think it's going to require continued conversations with a few different entities, though. I mean, we have Homeland Security, we have the DOE, we have the police, and of course the principals regarding safety and security protocols and requirements. So as we stated earlier, infection is not the only problem that we have to prepare for. So we're definitely going to weigh all of this.
Okay. Please describe how often bathrooms will be cleaned.
Again, bathrooms are cleaned daily. They'll continue to be cleaned daily. However, throughout the day, our daytime custodians will be making periodic checks into the restrooms to ensure that they are, clean. And that's probably the best answer I can give you.
Okay, there are a lot of the same questions, so I'm just trying to make sure you guys aren't repeating yourselves. I understand the handbook sent to us was for district-wide distribution. Will there be grade-specific handbooks for what each classroom will be experiencing in terms of timeline of instructional periods, classroom setup, mask and other safety rules, etc.? There's a big difference between what a kindergarten student will need and be expected to do versus an 11th grader.
Yeah, I can completely agree. In addition to the reopening handbook, the principals are going to provide further building-based plans and details. And that should hit a lot of the day-to-day operations that impact the specific school populations. We were asked, everything in these questions regarding specific plans for lineup, for drop-off, for pickup, et cetera. And again, all schools are going to be releasing their individual plans for these types of procedures in the very near future. We also received questions regarding snack and how that's going to be handled. This would also be dependent upon the most recent orders that we're under and also the building's abilities to handle snacks safely. So more on this to follow.
Okay, I believe that's it for facilities. Skipping down. We did health and safety. Okay, instruction. I would like to know if this school year 2020-2021 will have better or greater participation with the students via Zoom or Skype or whichever means for video conferencing, because the connection or live communication from students to teachers the end of last school year was extremely disappointing and showed mediocre effort at best. It is my hope this school year will be much better protocols in place to have teachers be more actively present, interactive, and participate in live video classes.
Yes. we have we have taken the time and heard the feedback from parents, from teachers, from students, that we needed to do more in terms of the remote learning environment and interactions. So based off of the schedules that you have all received, or sample schedules you have received for the in-person model, and there are many questions in terms of what does that live stream look like. So I'm going to try to touch upon a lot of information in the answer to this question to mitigate a number of questions that follow. So in the in-person model, we are looking for the teachers to live stream their direct instruction to the students who are opting for the remote option. What that means is the teachers will be teaching to the live students, in-person students, but sharing with you their visuals. So if there's some sort of chart or demonstration that would typically be happening at the whiteboard, we're now going to be utilizing a Google Meet and transferring that information. So that information may be shared live through a demonstration on a Google Meet. It may be through a Google Doc. It may be through a Google slideshow. There was questions about the audio and whether with the teachers being masked, will the students who are home, will they be able to hear the teachers clearly? We are looking at our options in terms of getting more amplification systems within the district in order to assist in that regard. Now, other questions regarding this live stream came across with, will the students who are at home be able to interact with their classmates who are in the in-person, or interact with their teacher during this situation? At the exact given moment that the teacher is sitting there or standing there delivering their instruction, there may not be an opportunity for a student who is remote to ask a question. However, we are building in within the time that the students are in class. So typically what would happen, and I'll use elementary for an example right now, we would give a direct lesson and then students break off into groups. So there's nothing to keep a teacher from at that time or during the course of the week when she would meet with different groups of students to be able to interact with those students who are remote and bring in some of the other students who are in class with them so that they can see their peers. The other opportunity for the students who are learning remotely to interact with their teacher and interact with their class peers is in the afternoon. Specifically designed so that students who were learning remotely could have that interaction with their peers. Now, at a high school level, that could look completely different in terms of what's happening in the morning. I'm going backwards. They could get their direct instruction, and if there's some sort of literary circle that's happening or a class project that's happening, there's nothing to stop a teacher from creating a Google Meet of small groups, and the students who are remote could be working with the students who are in class at that given time. It's all going to be a very different way of delivering instruction, and all of our teachers will be receiving the professional development regarding this within the first couple of days of school, in order to ensure that we are upping the ante and providing a more robust educational experience and equitable educational experience for those who are in person and for those who are remote.
You just answered like
I think I answered all my questions.
I know, it's okay. I'm sorry if I repeat any of them. Just say I answered it, but I'll try and weave them
I'm
out.
trying to speed up the process here. No, I'm
A
only kidding.
plus,
Okay.
Jen, A
I know.
plus.
Very well prepared.
Okay, will a link be available to all students in the class to assess the morning or access, excuse me, the morning session remotely if needed? For example, if my child is enrolled as a hybrid student but stays home because they have a symptom from the list, such as the runny nose or cough, will they still be able to participate in the day's class remotely?
Yes. So luckily, Google started to enhance their Google Meet opportunities. So now within a Google Classroom, right in the Google Classroom is the link to the Meet. So every day the students just have to click on that Meet link and they are in with the rest of their class.
At the high school, will our normal grading system continue to be used for the fall, or will it be switching to something else, i.e. a pass-fail? I didn't see this addressed in the reopening plan.
All grading throughout the entire district will remain as it typically would have. We only changed to the situation that we had in the spring because it happened so quickly, but we are looking to keep things grading status quo throughout the entire district for the upcoming school year.
Please elaborate on whether students will move between classes in the middle school as per usual, or whether they will stay in the same classroom with the same group of students and the teachers will move between classes.
So right now, Dr. Gallo and her administrative team and counseling department have updated the master schedule to, as I mentioned earlier, cohort the students to the best of their ability. They are trying to mitigate the amount of movement that they will have in the hallways by cohorting them by their math course and by their world language selection. There will be different circumstances where it doesn't work out perfectly, so there will be some movement, but we are really looking for the teachers to move amongst the classrooms versus the students.
When it was remote learning, there were no tests. How do the students who are in remote learning option take tests?
So if you are in a remote learning option, we are digitizing as many of our assessments as possible. So you will be taking an assessment just like your classmates would if you were in person.
Have any voice amplification systems been purchased for the classrooms? As the middle school video indicated, masks muffle voices. This will be an issue for in-person learners, but particularly for remote learners who are trying to hear a teacher speaking through a mask over a tiny Chromebook speaker.
So as I mentioned, we recognize that this could be an issue or a concern. We've tested it. It's not as bad as we thought it would be, but we do recognize that there's a need for improvement in this area. So we are in the midst of inventorying all of the amplification systems that we have in the district, and we'll be looking to purchase what we can.
Why aren't there dedicated teachers for remote students? It would allow at-risk teachers to avoid the classroom, give remote students an interactive learning environment, and in-person teachers/students wouldn't be distracted by the technological and other hurdles of including remote students.
Yeah, Jen, if you don't mind, I'll take this one. It's something that we can explore further once we have enrollment. I mean, I can see at least one foreseeable challenge that would be, if one or more students in a remote only teachers class decided to change to in-person, then they would need to switch teachers, or potentially have two teachers. So we really need real numbers to work that all the way through.
How much of the afternoon session will consist of pre-recorded learning sessions for elementary school level?
There will be some pre-recorded for some of the specials at times. It will be a combination of the specials teachers, the meaning music, art, PE, and library, starting their lesson off with the entire class. And then they may break off into a video to allow you to go do something and then rejoin you later. In terms of the second period of the day that the students are required to attend, that will be teacher led and there will be no pre-recording.
Children at the primary centers and elementary schools share leveled books in the classroom and bring home books to practice their reading skills. How will children safely share resources such as leveled text this school year?
So we have asked each of the teachers and principals to work together in creating a book baggie or book box for each of the students at the beginning of the year, as they know what level the students will be working on. The students will continue with those books for a period of time. When they're ready to move up to the next level, those books will be put aside for 72 hours when, as per our guidance, they are no longer contaminated, if there was any contamination on them, and they'll be ready to be put back into the school classroom libraries for recirculation to other students.
What will come of the wonderful music program at Lincoln Hubbard? Is there a safe way to implement music as part of the curriculum?
So we are implementing band, music, orchestra, and chorus across the district. We are not forgetting the arts in this pandemic. At the elementary level, all of the students will receive music lesson or music as one of their specials remotely in the afternoon. At the middle school and high school level, band, orchestra, and chorus will happen in small groups. They will be pulled from either PE or a study hall. We've also included at the high school level extra classes within the master schedule in order to reduce the number of students who would be meeting at one time. No student will miss their study hall in either one of those buildings, but we need to do it in smaller groups versus the larger group in order to continue with the program.
How will labs work for high school students who choose remote learning?
So it is my understanding, and I'm sure Mrs. Grimaldi or Mr. O'Dowd will be able to explain this in further detail for you, but they are planning to have the students who are remote view the lab while the in-person students are conducting the lab and share the data with their remote peers. And they're also looking to utilize a software called the Gizmo in order to make this more doable for the students who are remote.
The remote option seems to come at a large disadvantage. Students are asked to be in front of a screen for hours on end. Students will, to some extent, be watching other students in the classroom. Are there any options for remote that involve making the same resources, hard copy, etc., available to students so they do not have to endure as much screen time and not watch a live cast of others learning?
So we're not necessarily asking for students to sit in front of a computer for 4 hours. As I mentioned earlier, it would be similar to if they were sitting in class. They'll be able to hear and see the instruction that's happening via the live stream. And then once the teacher is ready for that independent work or that guided practice, the students who are at home would continue to do that. They're not necessarily sitting and staring at a computer screen the entire time. In addition to that, they can take that independent assignment, take the break, do their work, and sign back on, or just listen for when the teacher starts to teach again for their next subject or their next class, and move forward from there.
Will kids be required to log in and remain online and active for afternoon session? How will that be monitored?
Yes, we are expecting all students to participate in the afternoon sessions. Teachers will be taking attendance at the elementary level for the two classes. The first class will be from 1:30 to 2:15, and then the second class will be from 2:15 to 3 o'clock. Again, whoever those teachers are, whether it's a special or whether it's their homeroom teacher, attendance will be taken. And at the middle school and high school level, there are 4 periods that they have in the afternoon. Each teacher will be taking attendance.
Please provide more information about homework expectations in elementary, middle, and high school. Is there any change from prior years?
No, there's no change. Homework is homework. Whatever the teachers deem necessary. It could be a workbook page out of their math text at the elementary level. It could be a reading assignment. It could be a writing assignment. middle school, high school, whatever their core subjects would typically assign, they can continue to assign it.
Should any school supplies be purchased before school starts?
I would say wait for the information to come from your building principal as to further guidance on that.
I'm reading questions that you've answered, so sorry if there's a pause.
That's okay.
Okay. Have teachers been trained to ensure they give equal time to remote and in-person learners in their classes?
As I mentioned, we have not done any extensive training throughout the course of the summer. However, once the teachers return on the 27th, we have been working very closely with the technology department in organizing the training for the remote students.
Gyms are not open in New Jersey. The governor has decided that they cannot be safely opened. Why will students have gym class? Can we opt out? How far apart will students be distanced? Is this allowed by law?
So PE is a requirement in all grade levels. So we have taken that into consideration at the elementary levels. We have made it virtual at the middle school and high school level. The classes will be spread out. We'll be utilizing the outdoors as often as we possibly can, weather permitting, putting smaller groups in an auxiliary gym at the middle school, at the high school, and also utilizing the main gyms for PE as well.
Will teachers be permitted to have their own young children with them while teaching remotely?
I'm not sure what that means. However, if a teacher does have, so if a teacher is working in a remote situation due to a school closure and the district not opening and they have children, there is a possibility that their children may be in the vicinity when they are delivering their instruction. However, if you're asking whether teachers will be able to bring their children to school to deliver their instruction in the in-person situation, no, children are not coming to the building.
If your child has his or her own advanced curriculum, will this be available to the student when and if classes are remote?
Yes, so we are looking to take whatever structure and schedule a student has and their in-person learning. If we are expected to go remote or you choose the remote option from the beginning, whatever their schedule would typically be will continue in that environment.
You kind of touched upon this earlier, but for kindergarten, can you speak to parents concerned about excessive screen time and the plan for nearly 2 hours of remote instruction every afternoon? Is remote learning mandatory for primary school students attending in person each morning?
Yes.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
oh, I'm sorry, Tanya, go for it.
No, it's okay. I think you already answered most of it. So, so I think, you know, as in the early elementary realm, we're really mindful of the research on high rates of screen time and the impact of verbal expression in young learners. Our plans have attended to that consideration, and we are building in opportunities for students to talk about their learning, which actually improves student learning in the long term. And that will be provided through teacher professional development and family learning throughout the year. Back to Jen's point, remote learning in the afternoon is mandatory. We are building in the early elementary level an opportunity for students to practice what they learn during the school day. And we're configuring our afternoon into rotational centers, which is basically students moving from one activity to another in 15 to 20-minute increments. We will be providing information as far as what centers are going to happen each day and the expectations for assignments in teachers' Google Classrooms.
I think we're wrapping up an instruction, but here's another question. My daughter has a 504 plan that allows for extra time for assessments. How will this be handled in person / remotely?
So 504 accommodations will still be implemented in school, whether remote or in person. So for extended time, that will be on the teacher, working with counselors, working with study skills, study hall periods, support classes, and trying to accommodate the need for extra time.
I have a child enrolled in the morning session of the pre-K program at Wilson. I was hoping to see information about timing adjustments, if any, safety protocols, and virtual learning. The only reference to half-day pre-K is in the special ed section. When will I be getting these details? I need more information in order to make an attendance decision.
Thank you so much for raising this question. Our preschool programs, the morning and afternoon sessions, will run 5 days a week on these scheduled times. So no changes regarding the morning and afternoon sessions. Mr. Kozak and I and the preschool teachers met last week, and we talked about social distancing in the preschool classrooms and how just the structure of the lessons will need to be modified to accommodate the social distancing. And there will be a remote learning option for preschool parents. And if you have any other questions about the preschool, feel free to reach out to Mr. Kozak or to me about that.
Will the remote-only students be able to meet the teachers once in the beginning of the school year, maybe an outside event? This would be mostly for students who are starting a new school.
So I thought this was a really great suggestion, and I think we'll talk to the building principals and teachers about being able to accommodate this.
Okay, this is another social emotional learning question. In addition to the planned curriculum around mindfulness and self-care, will any of the licensed school counselors be offering group support for children to meet to discuss their reactions to COVID with parental consent? As mentioned in the plan, there is a rise of depression and anxiety in children. While children can seek independent counseling, there are limited opportunities for a group counseling experience for kids. Children often believe they are alone in feeling a certain way. Having a group forum to share feelings and practice coping skills with other children can be very powerful and beneficial to our children during this time.
So I'd like to just say that Laura Kaplan, Director of Guidance, and her entire team have been working all summer on the social emotional learning program and how to best address the needs of students when we return to school. First, there will be a parent survey going out, I think before the open of the school year. And this is just an opportunity for parents to share what their perspective is on how their students have dealt with the school closure, COVID, isolation, anxiety, any concerns that parents have. And this will be important information for us to look at, for counselors to be aware of, and with parent consent to share with teachers so that we know how to best meet the needs of students in the classroom. In addition to that, our students will be surveyed. This will give us further insight into how our students are managing. And once we have that information, we'll be able to look at that data and assess what the needs are and look at it from a tiered approach and implement different strategies, whether it be in group counseling sessions, individual counseling sessions, maybe providing resources to parents for outside support. So we do look forward to having our students back and being able to start those processes. But thanks for asking that question, and thank you for the counseling team for working on the really creative things that they're doing.
Okay, these next few are geared towards special education, and then we move to technology. Why are the self-contained classes scheduled for half-day and not full-day in-person programs, given that some children are not responding to virtual learning?
So we certainly recognize that, and the self-contained classes will be attending in person for the full day. We're doing a couple of weeks of transition to get back to that point, recognizing that it's been a while since they've been in school. The only exception to that is our high school LLD program. Those students receive instruction from content area specialists. So their program is really not like a typical self-contained program. So they will be attending school in the hybrid model like the rest of our students.
Could you provide more insight into the protocols in place to carry out support services, PT, OT, or speech? How will the shortened in-person day impact services, if at all?
So we talked about this a little bit before with that speech therapy question, and it's similar. Our therapists are going to have to be creative in the way they're delivering instruction. They might need to be pushing into classrooms. They might need to be providing teletherapy, which they've gotten very good at. And they will look at scheduling sessions both in the morning and in the afternoon during remote learning, being very much aware that in the morning they need to be careful of, pulling students during their core academic subjects. We have safety cleaning protocols in place. We have plexiglass barriers in our small therapy spaces, gloves and face shields and clear plastic masks for staff and for students in speech therapy environments. So we are putting all of those things in place for the in-person sessions.
Will children who get resource room receive it every day despite the AB days? For many children, this is a huge component of their IEP.
So the AB days are at the middle school and high school, and they'll have to follow the schedule of the building and grade levels. So it will be periods 1 through 4 on an A day, and whenever they have a resource room class during periods 1 through 4, they will be in that class and receive the additional remote instruction in the afternoon, and similar with the B schedule. So they'll still be getting their replacement classes, but they will have to follow the schedule of the building.
Okay, you may have touched upon this earlier, but I'll ask it anyway. What are the plans to instruct students with learning disabilities who found virtual learning difficult at best last spring? Please elaborate for in-person, hybrid, and virtual learning settings, as it's possible we will be experiencing each one at some point in the coming school year.
We certainly realize the challenge for a lot of students in the remote learning, and even more so for our students with learning challenges. So I think what Jen and Tanya spoke about before with regards to more synchronous learning, more direct teacher contact will absolutely help our students. They'll be following a schedule, so it will be different than just teachers providing scheduled Google Meets. They'll be following their actual school schedule. So that's going to help significantly. Students that are receiving in-class support with a gen ed teacher and a special ed teacher will meet with their special ed teacher every afternoon. So they'll have additional time in a smaller group with the special ed teacher. Students in replacement classes, whether remote or in person, will have the opportunity, as Jen spoke before, to meet in small groups live with their special ed teacher. Our instructional aides had the opportunity to have some pretty extensive training during the school closure. They had training in behavior support, how to support not only teachers, but how to better support students with motivation and attention and work completion. They had training on different disabilities and how these disabilities impact children in the classroom. So I think our instructional aides are so ready and prepared to support students also who have that type of support in their IEPs. So I think overall, the addition also study skills classes, study hall classes, the support class at the middle school. We've had curriculum revised over the summer to focus more on executive functioning skills, which was a big challenge during remote learning for our kids. So I think all of these things will absolutely better support our students with IEPs and parents. These are individualized learning plans, so you should absolutely feel free to reach out to me over the next couple of weeks if you have questions, and of course your case managers when we return to school.
What type of support will be given to students with IEPs for SAT/ACT prep?
So my recommendation is that you reach out to your case manager and or school counselor. They can provide resources for SAT and ACT prep classes. And of course, we'll work with counselors and case managers work with College Board and ACT to make sure that students are getting the accommodations they should be getting on standardized tests.
Thank you, Doreen. We're on to technology. Do all students get a Chromebook, even if fully remote? If so, how do they pick up these devices?
So all students in kindergarten through grade 12 either already have a Chromebook or will receive them. We are also currently waiting on the delivery of new devices. If the year were to begin without some of those new devices coming in, then the students who have devices will continue with what they have rather than get them replaced. And we will distribute any other devices that are available in the district to anyone who needs them. As far as how they go about getting them, we've installed a contactless package management system for distributing devices, very similar to what you may see at the 7-Eleven in the middle of town that Amazon uses to deliver devices to a set of lockers. So for anyone who happens to be remote, we can deliver that through that method. If not, then we will provide them to the students in school when they return.
For the remote kids, is the live stream learning interactive? Can they participate in asking questions and such?
I know this was something that was asked during Jen's portion of the questions. I think she's answered it. The short answer is yes, it's interactive, and there's no technological limitation on them asking questions, and it all depends on the activities that are happening with the teacher.
Has the system been tested to ensure that the schools have the bandwidth to simultaneously stream multiple classes during the morning in-person sessions?
As much as possible, yes. Some of the things that factor into the overall equation for this is that we have made significant investments over time through a partnership with the business office and working with educators and the technological side of the district to ensure that our wireless network is a robust enterprise-grade network. We also will have less devices taxing the wireless network as a significant number of the students will be remote. So in normal times with all the students in the district and all the teachers in the district, we have quite a bit of video streaming going on. We have lots of on-demand video that they watch going on. So our capabilities are quite robust in that area. Our available bandwidth is 4 gigabits, which is higher than just about any other school district that I've heard of, even some of the much larger school districts. And if need be, we can scale up our systems to provide even greater capabilities.
How will a teacher engage both, I'm guessing F2F means face-to-face sessions and virtual at the same time? What is the protocol if a child gets sick?
So again, Jen touched upon this in her comments. The real basic of it is that we've tested streaming. Actually, hold on. I'm on the wrong question, I'm sorry. So the basic of it is the teachers will project their screen onto the board in the classroom for the in-school students to see. Simultaneously, the computer screen will be streamed home along with the audio. Whatever the teacher does on the screen will then be viewable by the student at home on their devices and the students in school on the projector screen. This is just one iteration of it. There's a lot of different possibilities of how this can all be implemented. If a child were to stay sick homesick one day, then from a technological standpoint, there's no issue with the student participating virtually. And again, as I said, Jen had discussed this previously.
Okay, I think you mentioned this earlier, so you could just give a simple yes or no answer, but my child is entering 9th grade and his Chromebook is not functioning properly. The reopening plan suggests that new Chromebooks are distributed to all 9th graders. Please confirm.
Yes.
Okay. What safeguards are in place to keep our children safe online while using the Chromebooks? Additionally, what protocols are in place to keep the cameras used for remote learners private? What public access is there for classroom links?
So filtering is active on all devices, both at home and in school. This is one of the many improvements we've seen with changing our filtering provider. By default, access to the camera and microphone can be enabled only with permission granted by the user. So there's not the option for a website to do it unless the user says it's okay to do it. You can review the settings for the camera and the microphone on your child's account. by using the directions that I've posted under the other resources section of the district technology website. When you go to the main part of the district technology website, we have all the resources we were posting during the surprise closing that we had last year. And I've added a new one recently for this in particular, because I thought it was a great question and people should be able to check their settings. But each Google Classroom, to answer the last part of the question, is available by invite only to teachers, administrators, and students. So there's really no public access to it.
Will the Google Meet sessions be recorded? If so, who has access to the recordings? If a child is ill one day, would they have access to this learning at a later date so they could catch up? Are children made public in these sessions or just the teacher?
This is a great question. It's been much discussed. During the closure in the spring, we had the feature by which anyone could record a Google Meet disabled. Currently, it's not enabled. I know the discussion is ongoing to look at it as, is it a feature that is a positive one to be able to use for, some, instances where the students might need to see something, or is it a problematic one? One of the nice things about Google is they've been updating the capabilities of their systems. And previously, if we had enabled it, anyone could have turned on the recording feature, student or teacher. Now they've changed it so that only the staff member who initiated the meeting could record it. But again, that's still an item in discussion, and I expect that to be ironed out before the start of the school year.
Can I add on to that for a second, Doug? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Just to clarify, any recording that would take place would have to happen on the district's end. The family's end, the student's end, parents' end recording of the instruction would be a violation of our district policy. So I'll add that.
And that's why we didn't want to enable it at the time, because the capability made it so that we couldn't control that. Now we can control that. But I think the question still remains, is that something the district's ready to do?
Okay, this next question is probably another just yes or no question. Will students be provided something to access remote learning for the afternoon instruction?
The Chromebooks K through 12 is what the expectation is. Again, we're waiting on some deliveries that are a bit delayed with everything that's going on. But we're going to adapt as we need to, and students should have the devices that they need both in school and at home.
If the audio or video is not functioning properly for virtual students, is there tech support in the school buildings to help teachers resolve the issue?
Yep, the tech support is actually a very robust system we have in the district. We have technicians for all levels. We have systems for how the issues are reported that have been communicated to teachers for students while they're in school, and we'll continue to follow those with social distancing guidelines, adapted for social distancing guidelines. For anyone who is out of the district, we are using that same package management system so that it can be contactless delivery and replacement. So we see it being very seamless. Once we have all the devices in place that we've ordered and all the ones that we are preparing to use as loaners, we expect that any broken device can be swapped out as soon as it's identified as broken, which should be the same time that it's reported. And then we take the device back and fix it while the student goes off with the one that we replaced it with, so that there's as little disruption to their school day as possible.
Okay, this is the last question for the technology section. When will the laptop be delivered to the student's home, or will we need to pick it up at the school? Also, will there be any training provided to familiarize with the software programs that will be used?
So I think I mentioned before that we are, once we have some of the deliveries in and with the other devices that we have to distribute, if the students are reporting to school and we have everything we need, then we will distribute it to them at school. In some cases, we're looking to collect back some of the older devices when the new ones come in, and there'll be a little bit of switching around of things, but all that will be handled as much as possible in school. For instances where someone is at home and they're going to remain remote, we'll use the contactless package management system. We've been testing that over the summer with some of the devices that have had to come back for repairs. And it's been highly successful. Everyone that's used it has been very positive about it. So I expect that to continue. As far as additional training, the students, through our one-to-one initiative in normal times, we've always had multiple lessons that are developed by our technology coaches and then shared to the teachers of students who are getting devices for the first time. And they go through it's like a turnkey type of training that goes from the tech coach to the teacher and the teacher to the students, allowing them to become more familiar with things. There is a version of that that we are adapting for our current situation that we're in. So those will continue. And a lot of it focuses on online safety, good digital citizenship, and how to use the device. For the youngest kids who have never used devices before, this will be the first time they've done it. But for almost all of our students, even when we didn't have a one-to-one previously, they still would have used the same devices in district and carts.
Okay.
I know you said 8:30, but
Yeah,
a little bit.
thank you so much. And that's all good. You know, I think we've delivered a lot of information tonight. And at this point, we're gonna end this Q&A. You know, for now, I hope that this was really helpful to a lot of folks. I really want to thank you all in the community for your thoughtful comments and for your questions. Please know that, you know, we always welcome these opportunities to dialogue, to understand. We want to collaborate on solutions where possible. And I also want to give a quick thank you to all the people out there who provided some positive and supportive and encouraging comments. Those are definitely appreciated. You know, those keep us going for sure. We're going to remain committed to ongoing transparent communications as we have throughout. We hope that our handbook and this forum have given you some more of just that. Know that we are willing to continue to identify some areas where, you know, we may need to make changes, and we'll explore meaningful solutions that ultimately result in what we all want, you know, which is just a safe environment where we can deliver excellence to our students. Again, we believe that we've created a comprehensive and detailed half in-person, half remote combination model. And we also believe that we've got a very robust full remote model. And I'll reiterate, you know, we're not attempting to make a choice for you. We're not attempting to sell, you know, one model over the other, just to provide quality education, regardless of your level of comfort or your preference. Please remember, your registration is the next critical step in allowing us to move forward with planning and getting some more answers. Our deadline is tomorrow at midnight. Anyone who doesn't complete the form will be enrolled for our in-person morning and remote afternoon model. So I thank you again for your participation in this and for all of your support.
Thank you, everyone, very much.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks. Great job, guys.